What's up, everybody? How we doing? About to get some news kicked off. Everybody's favorite. Okay, that looks fairly okay.
So as we continue to keep these live images here on your screen, again, this is out of Beirut in Lebanon. I want to bring into the conversation now just to discuss all of these latest developments. David Daoud, he is with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and he has been following these developments very closely. David, good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me on.
So I did give a bit of a recap there right off the top of some of the things that we had been following for the last several hours. What really stuck out to you, and what really, out of all of those developments, could possibly change the trajectory of this entire conflict?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, the very fact that Hezbollah joined in this conflict, given its domestic constraints, given the fact that I mean, just over a year ago, they got out of a war that they got, they fell into. They didn't really expect their intervention in the Gaza conflict to turn into a full war. Decimated their political leadership, decimated most of their arsenal. And yet we find them again starting a conflict with the Israelis. And this suggests to me that they're sensing that the Israeli American war in Iran is heading in a direction that's going to threaten the regime's existence. Otherwise, why risk the predictably furious Israeli response and the equally predictably furious response from Lebanese? For again dragging them into a foreign conflict. The one thing that could really change this trajectory is if the United States and Israel stop the war prematurely for whatever reason. If President Trump accepts any Iranian offer for negotiation, some kind of off ramp that allows the regime to preserve its existence, lick its wounds from this conflict, preserve its existence, but then return back to the same behaviors that led us to this point to begin with.
I want to put up next here, it's a map of the region just to give our viewers a bit more context as to some of the surrounding countries. Now, this conflict, David, as you know, it appears to be affecting multiple countries across the Middle East right now. How concerned are regional governments about this risk of a further expansion when it comes to the fighting?
Well, I mean, I think it's expanded as far as it can already. Where there are attacks on the Gulf states, there's attacks in Iraq and Jordan, and Iran is saying that it's only attacking U.S. assets in these countries. But really, what they're trying to do, and it's first of all not true, right? We've seen footage of attacks on, say, hotels in the United Arab Emirates and elsewhere, and what they're trying to do is kind of hit the soft underbelly of American regional power. The Gulf states are prosperous countries. They're not, they've had a history of war, say in Yemen, but they're not inclined towards fighting. They don't have that durability that say, or the endurance these say the Israelis have built up from unfortunately decades of experiencing war after war after war. And what the Iranians are hoping is this harassment of the Gulf states will lead them to effectively cry uncle. And given their influence with President Trump, given President Trump's proximity to the Gulf states, that they'll turn to him and say, President Trump, please stop this war in Iran. We can't take anymore. And again, that'll lead to a premature ceasefire that'll allow the Islamic Republic to endure everything that Iran is doing right now. I don't think they expect a genuine military victory in the conventional sense. They're trying to get what the United States and Israel to do to stop because they want the regime to survive. Again, not so they can come to a real modus vivendi with either the United States and Israel or the regional countries, but so they can go back to the business of regional destabilization, proxies, building up their ballistic missile arsenal, and of course, going back to rebuilding their nuclear program.
As we talk a little bit about some of these goals that Iran still has here in terms of where they want this to go next, and given the rhetoric, what we've heard from both the U.S. and the Israeli governments, I mean, is this something that Iran could achieve just to keep the regime alive and to continue on operations as
What's
they
up,
were
everybody?
before?
Achieving the regime's survival actually isn't that hard. It's a harder lift for the United States and for Israel, given we don't have ground forces in Iran, given the size of the country, given that this is a regime that's had almost 50 years to build up organizational depth. It's actually harder to achieve regime change, to destroy the proxies, to eliminate all of Iran's pathways for resurgence than it is for Iran to just maintain that bare thread that allows it to continue existing, at least the Islamic Republic regime, rather. And from there, look, then they'll wait until international conditions are more favorable. Maybe the current president becomes more preoccupied with domestic issues. The next president's not interested in the Middle East. They'll wait for an opportune moment. This is a regime that is defined by strategic patience. So if it takes 5, 10 years, they'll wait for that moment when the eyes are off of them, and then they'll restart what they've been doing. So the goal now is just survive, and that's a very easy goal to achieve.
A lot of the conversation right now, or a lot of the major headlines, do follow these military dynamics, all of these military operations that are underway from all of these sides. But as we take a live look here out of Beirut in Lebanon, David, I want to talk a little bit about what we know given the humanitarian situation on the ground in several of these places that have been hit. I mean, what is the impact to civilians right now?
Well, we know that there's massive displacement. This war started with a massive and predictably ferocious Israeli response, as I've noted. But also, the Israelis have issued several warnings now to the residents of South Lebanon. I think initially there were like 53 villages, and then they kept increasing the number. And then ultimately they said all of South Lebanon move north of the Litani River. Then this was followed by a call for the residents of Dahia. This is Beirut's southern suburbs, heavily Shiite area, effectively Hezbollah's nerve center in Lebanon. Move out of the area, move northward, move eastward. And then there were the areas of Baalbek that also, this is eastern Lebanon. There were calls for Lebanese to evacuate, Lebanese, again, Shiites, to evacuate westward. So basically move out of the areas where Israel alleges that Hezbollah has military assets, where it's operating. Now, the Israelis want to facilitate their military operations while minimizing the harm to civilian casualties. Hezbollah has a history of intertwining itself with the civilian population, intertwining its assets with the civilian population, which itself is a war crime. And the Israelis, what they're trying to do is say, get out of the way, guys, get out of the way, people, civilians, move out of the way, so we can, we don't harm you, and we can facilitate the targeting of Hezbollah assets. But ultimately, this is going to result in what we've seen, about 300,000, I think the estimate is, displaced Lebanese. I mean, Dahia alone, where the Israelis have called for evacuation twice now, has a population of 500 to 700,000 people. They've not all cleared out, but we're seeing reports of massive displacement northward from the south, and already massive movement out of Dahia. The Israeli campaign is slowly being ratcheted up. I think there's more of a focus on Iran now, and I think there's also an attempt to give these civilians an opportunity to move out of harm's way. But again, the ultimate result is going to be massive civilian displacement. But it's unavoidable, unfortunately, given the way Hezbollah operates within the country.
Talking about Hezbollah, but also going further with some more of these Iranian proxy groups. I mean, we've mentioned Hezbollah quite a few times within this discussion because they've really put themselves at the forefront in this fighting, and it escalates. As far as other Iranian proxy groups, what do we know about how they're possibly placing
Mhm.
themselves to also perhaps be involved in this fight as well?
Mhm. Well, it's natural that Hezbollah would put itself at the forefront. This has, for decades, been the tip of the spear of Iranian regional expansionism. Everywhere that Iranian influence has expanded, Hezbollah has been there first. If we go back to the Iranian expansion of its influence into Iraq. Hezbollah was there first in 2003, according to the Iraqi militias, to help pave the way for that. In Yemen and elsewhere in Syria, obviously, when the Syrian civil war happened, Hezbollah was the first to fight there to preserve Iranian interests at the expense of hundreds of thousands of Syrians. Now, the other militias, the Houthis have been relatively silent. They made some statements, but they haven't intervened in the conflict yet. I think they're perhaps being preserved for last. We've seen the Iraqi Shia militias begin their attacks. Not only that, they've also engaged in mutual reinforcement. A colleague of mine, Joe Truzman, and I, we are publishing a report on the Iraqi militias, not just saying they're coming into the fight to support Iran and the Islamic Republic, but now also, in light of the Israeli evacuation warnings and strikes in Dahieh, to intervene on behalf of Hezbollah. They're drawing a red line on Hezbollah. So there's this mutual support, this interest in mutual survival between the proxies to ensure, again, mutual survival, but also the broader survival of the resistance axis and the Islamic Republic of Iran.
This is just some video I want to point out to our viewers. This is from just yesterday. As I read the latest reporting, we know these strikes do continue. These are the images that we were getting out of Tehran there. David, we've been talking also about some of the biggest global concerns right now. I mean, oil markets, shipping routes, the safety of U.S. and allied forces in the regions. But from your assessment here and from what we're watching closely, what are some of the biggest concerns for those regional countries there as well?
Well, I think, again, ratcheting up the pain that Iran can inflict upon them. I don't think we've seen everything yet, unfortunately, from the Iranians. The goal will be to gradually ratchet up pain as long as this conflict continues, to get these countries to cry out even harder to say that they want the war to stop. In some ways, this seems to be backfiring, though. Just before I came on, unconfirmed reports as of yet, but I saw that the United Arab Emirates, rather than call on Washington to halt its combat operations and they have a peace treaty with the Israelis as well, rather than call on them to say stop striking the regime, we've had enough. They're engaging in attacks in Iran, which is unprecedented. I think what Iran is doing in the process of trying to save itself is actually proving the point that the Israelis and we, the United States, have been making for so long, that they are not just a military menace or a threat to the United States and Israel, but also to all the countries that surround them. This isn't a matter of a few historical grievances. Iran is pursuing an ideological goal that threatens the stability of all the countries in the region. And I think the way Iran is reacting with reckless abandon in some ways by attacking these countries around it is waking them up to see that they can't just rely on the United States and Israel to do the job. They may have to intervene themselves. And if the reports are true that Emirati forces are striking in Iran, this process seems to be underway.
David, you've been talking about this throughout this conversation, but for my final question, if you could just hone in for our viewers what they should understand about the broader implications of this conflict in the Middle East and also how it's having that greater impact on the international community.
Look,
What's up, everybody?
if the Iranian regime is somehow, and I think we're far from there yet. Again, we could destroy Iran's military assets, we could degrade them severely, could degrade their proxies severely, but achieving the regime's downfall, putting these proxies on a course of irreversible destruction or destroying them, we're still not there yet. But if that were to be achieved, the main regional destabilizer would be taken out of the equation. The main impediment to a lot of progress in the region. I mean, if you take Lebanon, which is the area that I focus on, look, Hezbollah isn't the source or the cause of Lebanon's problems, but it benefits from them so much that Hezbollah has become the main guardian of the corrupt system that has destroyed Lebanon through 1,000 paper cuts. Right? Lebanon is a country that is effectively a failed state. The economy is in shambles now. There's been deep economic crisis since 2019, and this is all the result of a corrupt political clique that is holding on to the country, some of whom are Hezbollah's opponents. But ironically, when the system is threatened, Hezbollah will even come to the defense or will join forces. We saw this in the last municipal elections. Hezbollah joined forces with its political opponents to help preserve this corrupt system, but this corrupt system is destroying Lebanon, again, through 1,000 paper cuts. We can apply this to Iraq. We can apply this to Yemen. Wherever these proxies exist, they're not interested in the prosperity of these countries. their interest in self-preservation, and so often their preservation, because it depends on the weakening of the central states, because it depends on the lack of prosperity of these countries. Otherwise, they have no reason, right? The population has no reason to turn to these militias. They will reinforce or feed into or create the conditions that keep these countries corrupt, on their knees, lacking a path to prosperity, just so they can survive, just so they can promote Iranian influence and power in the region. So removing this regime and these proxies will set these countries, it'll give them the first, it won't fix everything, but it'll give an opportunity for this region to start on a course to move in a direction that is more prosperous and more peaceful. And personally, I hope we see that.
David Daoud with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. We always appreciate your time here at Live Now from Fox just to break down this situation. We've heard from President Trump that he expects this is going to last for a few more weeks at least. So we'll be checking with you soon, to follow all of the latest. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to come back on. Thank you.
Of course.
We say the chapter isn't over. The system that protected him is still running, and we're coming for it. So when you leave here today, when the dust settles and the crowd disperses, carry this with you. This land has a memory, and today we are its voice. We march, we legislate, we testify, we dig. And we do not stop till every name is in the light. Every survivor is made whole. And every powerful man who thought this desert would keep his secrets learns the same truth. New Mexican women remember everything.
A moment for switching around on the Trump.
Hi, are we making sure to get footage of?
Thank you,
video of
Sonia.
this?
Sonia
Of
brought
this?
me in
I'll
to this
keep
work,
people off
and
the
she's
road,
an
so-
amazing
okay.
benchmark leader. We should all be listening to people like her.
No, come over here.
So one more round of applause.
They actually have somebody with their phone out there trying to do this live.
Our next speaker.
Hilarious.
Make sure you zoom in on the speaker.
Hernandez.
This is so bad. Dude, Fox got to do better, man.
Women's Day.
Yeah, but
Y'all gotta do
honestly,
better.
I
Hire
think
me,
it's
man.
easier.
Day one will be better than this. Jesus.
And we are in beautiful lands. Lands that have held the paintings of our ancestors, the hard work of our ranchers, the prayers of our faithful, but also sad.
It's so laggy. I'm not even gonna go to that feed. That's crazy. The way the weather pushes northeast is crazy.
For 8 years, Naila Franklin's family struggled through their incomplete grief. What really tormented me all these years is that there's a possibility that justice won't be done.
There was no real forensic evidence, only circumstantial things, though, according to the prosecutors, there was a whole smorgasbord of proof. That video of Reginald Potts with Naila the day she vanished, the video at the Target store that did not show him and thus blew up his alibi. Naila's friends testified she showed them emails and played a voicemail in which he threatened her.
Naila played that voicemail for them because she was so terrified. And essentially, in that voicemail, he said to Naila, I'm going to have you erased. I'm going to make you disappear.
In fact, said the prosecutors, that's exactly what he did. Snuck into her building, led her terrified to the garage, where he strangled her, stuffed her body in the trunk of her own car.
What the hell?
And how did they know he took her out to the suburbs to dump her body and her car?
Cell
Cell
phone?
towers linked
Duh.
their phones together like a trail of breadcrumbs.
From the moment that they walked out of that vestibule to the garage, she's not seen by anybody. She's not calling anybody. She's not answering calls. Her texts are all odd, but her phone and his phone are together, lockstep, the entire rest of the day.
Right to the abandoned video store, behind which they finally found Naila's body. No coincidence he chose that particular spot so far from Chicago, said the prosecutors.
And we find out that the Video Max store is owned by Potts' brother-in-law.
His friend, the alibi witness, now testified for the prosecution that yes, he initially lied for Reginald, but didn't know it was to cover up a murder. And remember those 3 strange hang-up calls to 911 and those odd texts her family and boyfriend received? It was Reginald Potts using Naila's phone hours after he murdered her, said the prosecution. A clever killer's attempt to throw off a missing persons investigation.
He's smarter
God
than the
damn.
average criminal, but not as smart as he thinks he
Shit's
is.
crazy.
But Reginald Potts was nothing if not strategic. His defense was to refute their evidence and
That's so
discredit
crazy.
the prosecution.
Defense attorneys need to create reasonable doubt. In this case, it was very difficult to determine cause of death. So immediately the defense is going to rush to that idea and say, well, you can't really tell how they died. And it's little things like that in the hopes that 1 juror or 2 jurors will latch onto that and say, I can't convict.
They even disputed the cell phone evidence the prosecution believed cinched the case.
The defense has alleged that the idea that you can triangulate a cell phone signal based on the cell it pings on a tower is somehow flawed.
After 2 weeks of testimony and argument, the jury had the case. Did Reginald's arguments persuade them? 2 hours and
What did he
15
say to
minutes
that?
after they began, the jury answered no.
And how is this live
They
news?
pronounced Reginald Potts guilty of first-degree murder.
This is production and edit.
I was so relieved.
It's not
It's
live
like, okay,
news.
that's past now. It's the next thing. So
The next thing was sentencing.
They even
Nearly
have a
4
narrator.
months later.
we're still waiting and hoping he doesn't get like 4 years or something stupid like that.
Regina never knew anything until she found it that night. I mean, this is so produced. Like, how is this news? It's not news. That's not news. Are they still doing the same thing at Fox too? Have they this whole time been filming from somebody's phone, live streaming it?
And the women who demand justice as far as we tell them, we will give you justice.
Fox, you gotta do better.
We will tell them, we will give you, what are we going to give them? And what are we going to give them? Truth. And truth and justice must always walk hand in hand. And it is indeed the women. It is the women of the world, the women who are here today, and the men who love us that are going to make sure that we bring justice and truth and accountability to all those who engage in this heinous activity. Muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes por estar aquí con nosotros. Get this news to families. Because today we are joined by a a family that has lost so much, but continues to give through their pain. And every time we ask them to share their story with us, we know that their hearts are breaking. But we know that they love justice so much that they will come and testify through their tears. And so I now introduce Robert, Sky.
Yeah,
Sky
I appreciate it.
and Robert,
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be
and
purchasing any
sister
kind of like
of
views or anything
Virginia
like that.
Giuffre, Daniel
Sorry.
Wilson and his wife. Thank you so
Not
much
interested.
for joining us.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I don't think I'm going to be able to top that. Thank you so much for your kind words for my family. It means so much to us to be here. Speak loud. Keep the mic close. I'll keep the mic close. I'm very sorry.
Bro, they
It's
tore that
very
guy
good
up.
to be here. It's very good to see each and every one of you here supporting this cause. Today, my honor is I'm going to be reading a statement from Maria Farmer. Does everybody know who Maria Farmer is?
Okay. I don't have a problem with this rally or like the message or anything they're talking about. They literally found like what appears to be like the biggest simp in the world to speak. So when he comes up to the microphone, they're like, say it with your chest. Start talking. Like, damn. What kind of rally is this?
Is ever present. Watching the world truly begin to celebrate her legacy has been awe-inspiring. Beyond that acknowledgement, the relationship we have built with her survivor sisters have provided the deepest healing. Today, I will be reading a statement from Maria Farmer, who has become not just a dear friend, but a true family to us this past year. Maria bravely reported the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell back in 1996. 1996. But the report was filed and ignored. Had the authorities acted then, our sister and countless others could have been spared. Here's Maria's statement. Maria starts her speech by saying, having Virginia's family speak for me is beyond an honor. I want to say it's our honor to be given this opportunity to speak for her. Thank you for gathering today to support the truth of what those in power permitted to stand for so long. There are many echoes of suffering on this landscape. Today, you are acknowledging what occurred here at the hands of the most powerful. I was last at Zorro Ranch in 1995 as construction was underway. As a student, I was impressed by the vast estate and the animals housed here. Ghislaine Jeffrey had me hoodwinked as a young, hungry art student. It is my hope that shining a light on the nefarious intentions of the benefactors who court students as pawns and servants will bring an end to the power differential many of Epstein and Maxwell victims endured. My little sister was tricked into visiting this ranch when she was a junior in high school. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sink in. She was a junior in high school, walking right behind us on this ranch. Epstein tricked her into believing he was running a scholarship competition with chaperones and 30 students that weekend. When Annie arrived, only Epstein and Maxwell awaited her. Jane Doe 15 was told the same promise. She was also greatly impacted by the harm brought to her after being lured by Epstein to Zorro. I believe the suffering Virginia endured here is what angers me the most. She was the strongest, most impactful person involved in our case. as well as the entire reason most of us came forward. Having known her is the greatest honor of my life. Witnessing her activism and fearless nature made me power on behind her. It would be great if this property were to be destroyed.
It's like 2 pages and he's been talking for 5 minutes.
Since we can't destroy it, let's keep advertising how nefarious it was to deter future abuse.
Nefarious.
Much love to you all, Maria Farmer.
Yeah, have zero problem with the message, but damn, that was super poorly executed. Oh my god.
Maria's
No
words.
way. He's got more? Wait, that was only 1 page and it took him that long to read 1 page? Fox, you guys gotta do better. From a production standpoint to what you're choosing to show, like I said, this message and what they're talking about, have no problem with it. It is just executed so poorly.
All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to start with I'm the crier in the family, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Hello, everyone. My name is Sky Roberts, and I'm the brother of Virginia Roberts Dupre. As many of you may know, Virginia was one of the most prominent and outspoken survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and many other powerful men that have yet to be brought to justice. Shiro! Yes! I stand here humbled by the opportunity to represent our sister, but also saddened because we wish she was here to see the impact she made on this world.
Yes. She sees it. She sees it. Feels it.
New Mexico is known as the land of enchantment. Virginia spoke about that beauty often. But right here, hidden in plain sight, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell built something very different, a house of horrors. Behind those gates, survivors endured abuse and suffering that cannot be fully put into words. And the people responsible believed they were untouchable, protected by wealth, shielded by power, and convinced the law would never reach them. Well, we're here to say that money and power do not buy you a different set of laws.
At least this guy's got a good flow in his reading.
Because justice was never meant to be a luxury item for the wealthy. It was meant to be the shield of the powerless. And if the law bends for the powerful, then it is no longer justice. It's permission. An alarming statistic is that nearly 1 in 3 women globally will experience a form of sexual abuse.
More than that. Yep.
In their lifetime. 1 in 3. Let that sink in. Now take a look around and look at your wife, your partner, your sister, your mother, and your daughters. Ask yourself, is this the world that we want them to live in?
No.
Are we going to allow this administration and our president of the United States to do this cover-up?
No.
Are we going to allow this administration's corruption to seep into our culture, part of their grooming process to desensitize our future generations into thinking this is the new norm?
Hell no.
I think everyone here today in the marches around the world are here to say we will not allow this to happen. Right now, we are facing a crossroads, and we want to thank Representative Teresa Ledger Fernandez and Representative Melly Sansbury, who couldn't be here today, and many of the representatives standing with us in D.C., in New Mexico, and across the world.
Thank you.
Thank you for standing with survivors.
Yeah, it's all this stuff definitely needs to be talked about for sure. The thing that sticks out to me is like the 1 or 2 people in the crowd that's like, this is about me, and they have to like make their comment, but it's not like a Q&A or anything. Even for a Q&A, you'd raise your hand. This is just random like outbursts, which is crazy. I get people are passionate about stuff, but if you realize that 169,000 people are watching you on a live stream, that's a major news network, you know, be aware of that kind of thing, you know? It's not that hard to notice. Yeah, just the pace of it. It just felt like it took so long. It's just crazy, though. Alrighty, I'm gonna get back to doing some stuff down in the garage and end the stream, but I will be back shortly. That like and sub, and I'll catch you guys in a bit.